Values. We all have them. Churches have them. We all value our values because, well, they are valuable. Like having personal conviction, being responsible, having unity, living as a disciple of Jesus. What church would argue against these good things? But as these abstract values get actually lived out in real life, these good values come in tension with other good values, with each other. The battle is not about good versus evil values, it's good versus good. Like the tension between discipleship and evangelism. There are a lot of good reasons for valuing discipleship. There is spiritual and character growth, increase in understanding of God's word, sanctification. On the other hand, there are also good reasons for valuing evangelism. The Great Commission is extremely rewarding and your heart for people grows. But these two good values are in tension. And often, people at the opposite ends end up criticizing the other side, pointing out the weaknesses of the other value. You are too shallow, people could say about the evangelism camp. In their attempt to relate to the non-Christian world, they would always pitch the same seeker-friendly message to the newcomer, never going deeper to raise the Christians. Another dark side might be, you are just into numbers. They can end up focusing on numerical growth as the primary measure as they try to reach out and spread the gospel. On the other hand, there are some dark sides of the discipleship value as well. They can become out of touch and insular, caring only about the insiders. Or they don't care about saving souls, which is what Jesus cared about. And in each camp, these convictions will be deeply and passionately felt. Because guess what? Each side is standing on a mountain of good reasons. So where's the balance? How can we bring these values together? Many of us are forever looking for that perfect balance point where these values can be best friends forever. But maybe the way to get there is to recognize and keep the tension. And while keeping both values in tension with each other, we need to figure out how to manage the dark sides of each value. So, now that we've talked about one example, let me quickly go through the other pairs of values in tension. Personal conviction versus guidance of leaders. We have good biblical reasons for emphasizing personal convictions. We need to have genuine faith and personally own our faith. On the other hand, God never intended individual Christians to fend for themselves alone, but placed Christians in the church with leaders and mentors to mature, guide, and grow as we do ministry together. But each side would have stuff to say to the other side, right? The need for guidance of leaders is biblical, but of course, it can lead to just being a mindless drone who doesn't know why he's doing the things that he's doing. You're just doing what you're told, never owning your own faith. On the other hand, the dark side of personal conviction side is that you can become an unbiblical loner Christian who is disconnected from people and doesn't know how to love anyone because there's just no consistent context in which you can do that or practice that. And this person would be very slow to grow because it's sort of like a student who wants to get an education but without teachers or school. At his own pace and time. Good luck with that, right? And both of these criticisms would be valid. So instead of choosing to stake out in a camp on one side or the other, a Christian is supposed to keep these values in tension, keeping each of these values in check, in a way. Another pair. Radical discipleship versus responsible living. We're called to deny ourselves and follow Jesus. And following Jesus, of course, it will radically transform your life. Jesus is not a hobby you can add on. Following Jesus means you no longer follow the things that the world chases after, like money and worldly success. But at the same time, Christians should live responsibly and not be a slacker or be weird for weirdness' sake and be a turnoff to the non-Christian seekers. And these would be the dark sides. Responsible living is great, but we can hide behind that to spiritualize our worldly ambitions. When God's supposed vision for our lives overlaps almost perfectly with our own ambitious hopes. Maybe we need to really look into whether or not we're spiritualizing our ambitions. But on the other hand, the dark side of radical discipleship is that we can hide behind that to spiritualize our laziness and irresponsibility. Doing life and career in this world can be anxious and scary. So this value of radical discipleship can be an easy and spiritual sounding reason to sort of drop out. I mean, there's certainly that danger. Another pair is countercultural living versus being culturally relevant. The Church of God should be a countercultural, alternative social structure that is different from the world so that we can be salt and light. But at the same time, we need to be culturally relevant so that we can engage with the world. The Christian is called to follow the steps of Jesus and become incarnational in this world, which is our mission field. Again, these two opposing camps can expose the negative sides of the other. Cultural relevance and contextualization is good, but in order to really relate with the world, we can become actually no different from the world. So in our attempt to be culturally relevant, we can start to do and pursue the same stuff that the world pursues, enjoy the same things that the world enjoys, and eventually we can become so compromised that we cannot possibly become salt and light, whose power comes from its drastic contrast from its surroundings. But being countercultural can also become just strange and isolationist. Yeah, you can definitely see the contrast, but that contrast is not attractive, and it just seems like some isolated commune experience where people get ingrown and they don't engage with the world at all. So, these are some of the common values in tension, and it can be confusing to try to live Christian life and do church in the midst of these seemingly contradictory values. But in order to form a fully orbed Christian community, we have to try to uphold both sides of these values in tension, with all of their bright spots and their dark sides. And that's a challenge for sure. But we have to tackle that challenge as we try to build up our community of faith.